I'm in the middle of presenting my case.
My daughter has a traumatic brain injury.
Someone burst into the community center hearing room. There's a little girl hurt outside. She fell from the treehouse. She's bleeding from her head. Jennifer Ashford looked up from her PowerPoint presentation. I'm in the middle of presenting my case. The board needs to hear this testimony about property value impacts. She clicked to the next slide, continued talking. 8 more minutes about architectural guidelines and community standards, while my 9-year-old daughter bled on the concrete patio 15 feet away. That was her mistake. Because I don't just fight HOA violations, I organize political campaigns that flip districts, and the board chair had just given me the perfect issue to mobilize 340 families. If you've ever had someone prioritize property values over your child's life, you'll understand, so hit the subscribe button right now. I'm Owen Matthews, political campaign strategist. I've run grassroots organizing drives that removed entrenched politicians, built coalitions from nothing, turned voter apathy into landslide recalls. I know how to identify an issue that moves people from fear to action. Jennifer Ashford keeping her PowerPoint running while Maya screamed? That was the issue. But I need you to understand why that treehouse mattered, why Maya was up there in the first place. My wife Rachel built it 3 years ago. She was 7 months pregnant with our second child. High-risk pregnancy, complications already showing. The doctors had warned us. Rachel knew she might not survive the delivery, so she spent her final trimmed months building Maya a treehouse, hammering planks, installing a rope ladder, creating a space that would survive her. She hid a memory box inside, letters written for Maya's future birthdays, ages 10, 13, 16, 18, 21. Rachel's jewelry for Maya's wedding day, photos of them together, a recording of Rachel reading Maya's favorite stories in her voice. "If I don't make it," Rachel told me, while sawing boards, belly huge, hands shaking, "Maya needs to know I was thinking about her future, that I loved her enough to build something permanent." Rachel died 3 hours after our son was born. Hemorrhaging, they couldn't stop. We lost them both. Rachel and the baby boy we'd named after her father. Maya was 6. The treehouse became her cathedral, the place she went to feel close to her mother, to open one of Rachel's letters on her 7th birthday, her 8th, her 9th. Then Jennifer Ashford cited it as an unapproved structure, violating architectural guidelines. I appealed, explained the significance, offered retroactive approval. The HOA president denied it. Emotional attachment doesn't supersede community covenants. Remove within 30 days or face $100 daily fines plus forced demolition. I filed for a formal hearing to challenge her decision, but Willowbrook's enforcer didn't wait for the hearing outcome. She ordered immediate demolition, claiming my appeal was clearly without merit. Maya came home from school to find workers dismantling her mother's final gift. She panicked, ran to save the memory box before they destroyed it, climbed up through the partially demolished structure. The platform collapsed. Maya fell 12 feet, hit her head on the concrete patio edge. I was inside that community center, waiting for the hearing Jennifer had scheduled, waiting to present my case for why a dying mother's gift to her daughter should be allowed to exist. Then someone ran in. A little girl is bleeding outside, and the former real estate attorney said, "I'm in the middle of presenting my case." She talked for 8 more minutes, showed slides about property values and violation precedents and architectural integrity, while I held my daughter's bleeding head and screamed for someone to call 911. The ambulance arrived during Jennifer's closing argument about maintaining community standards. Maya had a subdural hematoma, brain bleeding, emergency, surgery, and I had a campaign issue that would end Jennifer Ashford's reign over Willowbrook Estates. The paramedics loaded Maya into the ambulance while Jennifer Ashford finished her presentation inside. I heard her voice through the community center windows. In conclusion, maintaining architectural standards protects everyone's property values. The board applauded, actually applauded, while my daughter's blood stained the patio. Dr. Sarah Kim met us at University Hospital's emergency entrance. Took one look at Maya's dilated pupils and the blood matting her hair. Trauma team now, possible intracranial bleeding. CT scan confirmed it, subdural hematoma, blood pooling between her brain and skull, creating pressure that could kill her if it wasn't relieved immediately. We need to do emergency surgery, Dr. Kim said. Drill a burr hole to drain the blood, relieve the pressure. She's young, healthy, good odds, but every minute matters. Every minute I'd lost while the board chair presented slides about property values. If we'd gotten her here sooner, Dr. Kim didn't finish the sentence, didn't need to. Maya went into surgery. I sat in the waiting room, hands still covered in her blood, and called my sister to tell her what happened. Rachel's treehouse? My sister's voice broke. The one Rachel built while she was dying. Jennifer ordered it demolished during a pending appeal. Maya tried to save the memory box. Jesus, Owen, is Maya going to be okay? I don't know. The surgery took 3 hours. Dr. Kim came out looking exhausted, but relieved. We drained the hematoma. She's stable, but she's going to need intensive monitoring for the next few days. Any neurological changes could indicate complications. Maya woke up 12 hours later, groggy, confused, asking for her mom. Not me, her mom. The mother who'd been dead for 3 years. The mother whose final gift had been demolished while Maya bled. I held her hand. Mom's not here, sweetie, but you're going to be okay. The box. Did I get the box? The memory box had survived. Blood-stained, some contents damaged, but intact. I'd grabbed it from the patio before the ambulance left. You got it. It's safe, she cried. Quiet tears sliding down her face, careful not to move her head too much. I just wanted Mom's letters. The treehouse people were taking everything. 2 days after Maya's surgery, while she was still in ICU, Jennifer Ashford sent me a bill. Final notice. Demolition costs $6,200. Accumulated fines for unauthorized structure, 30 days at $100 day, $3,000. Total due, $9,200. Payment required within 15 days or lien will be filed against property. The HOA president had ordered demolition that put my daughter in emergency brain surgery, and she was billing me for it. I called her, tried to keep my voice level. My daughter almost died because you ordered demolition during a pending appeal. The hearing was a formality. Your structure clearly violated guidelines. Willowbrook's enforcer sounded irritated, like I was wasting her time. The demolition was legally authorized. Maya has a traumatic brain injury. That's unfortunate, but it doesn't change the violation or the associated costs. She paused. Mr. Matthews, I understand you're upset, but personal circumstances don't override community covenants. Other families have complied with removal orders without incident. Other families, the Rodriguez Memorial Garden, the Thompson Children's Playset, the Kumar Vegetable Garden, all removed per architectural guidelines. Your daughter's accident doesn't make your violation special. She'd done this before, forced other families to remove things that mattered to them, things that hurt nobody, things that made houses feel like homes. How many families, Jennifer? That's confidential board business. Now, about the payment. I hung up. Sat in Maya's hospital room, watching her sleep. IV in her arm. Bandages wrapped around her head, where they'd drilled into her skull. The former real estate attorney had just told me I wasn't special, that other families had been forced to comply, that my daughter's brain surgery didn't change architectural guidelines. She was right about one thing. I wasn't special. But I knew how to organize people who weren't special, people who felt powerless, people who'd been hurt by the same authority figure and thought they had to suffer alone. Jennifer Ashford had just told me there were other victims, other families who'd lost things that mattered, and I was a campaign strategist who knew how to turn individual suffering into collective action. David Chen showed up at the hospital on Maya's 4th day in recovery. I recognized him from board meetings. HOA vice president, always quiet, always taking notes while Jennifer dominated. "Mr. Matthews, can we talk? Privately?" We went to the family consultation room. David sat down, then stood up, walked to the window, sat again. His hands kept moving, adjusting his glasses, smoothing his tie, gripping the chair arms like he needed something to hold on to. "I was there." His voice was barely audible. "At the hearing, when they came in and said your daughter was hurt. I know, I saw you at the table." "I saw Jennifer." He stopped, started again. The board chair kept presenting. For 8 minutes. I timed it. His hands clenched into fists. I have a daughter Maya's age, and I watched an adult choose a PowerPoint over a bleeding child. David's jaw worked. He wasn't looking at me, staring at his hands like they belonged to someone else. I should have stood up, should have said something, should have walked out of that room and helped your daughter. His voice cracked. But I sat there, took notes, did nothing. Why are you telling me this? Because I keep seeing it. Your daughter on that patio, the blood, and Jennifer clicking to the next slide like it was normal. He finally met my eyes. I'm an accountant. I deal with numbers, not confrontation. The board chair, she controls everything. My accounting practice, half my clients are HOA board members she's connected to. If I oppose her, he didn't finish, didn't need to. But you're here anyway. I'm here because I have 3 kids, because I watched what happened to Maya and realized that if I stay silent, I'm complicit. David pulled out his phone, scrolled through something. I keep financial records, everything the board does, expenditures, violations, enforcement actions. How many enforcement actions? 47 over the past 3 years, since Willowbrook's enforcer became president. His hands were shaking now. The Rodriguez family, Thompson family, Kumar family, 12 others, all forced to remove things. Gardens, play sets, sheds, a memorial bench for a deceased father. She mentioned them, said they'd complied without incident. They complied because she threatened them. Daily fines, liens, legal action. Most families can't afford to fight an HOA with legal resources. David's voice went flat, professional. I have the financial records showing expenditures on legal fees to sue homeowners. $47,000 over 3 years. HOA funds used to intimidate residents into compliance. That's a lot of enforcement. It's systematic. The former real estate attorney runs Willowbrook like she's still practicing law, finding violations, building cases, crushing opposition. Property values are her religion. Human considerations don't factor into the equation. He stood up again, walked to the window, stood with his back to me. I can't testify publicly, can't go against her openly. My business, my family's security, it's all connected to staying in her good graces. His shoulders hunched. But I can give you the records, quietly. Documentation of every enforcement action, every family she's hurt, every dollar spent on legal fees to force compliance. Why? David turned around. His face was drawn, exhausted, like he hadn't slept in days. Because my daughter asked me why that little girl was bleeding, and I didn't have a good answer. He pulled a flash drive from his pocket, set it on the table between us. Because choosing business over conscience makes me as bad as the clipboard queen who chose a presentation over a child. If she finds out you gave me this, she'll destroy me, I know, but I also know I can't look at my kids if I do nothing. He pushed the drive toward me. Financial records, enforcement actions, email threads where she discusses making examples of non-compliant homeowners. It's all there. David, I know what it could do. To me, to my practice, but that's my problem. He headed for the door. Stopped. Mr. Matthews, I'm a coward. I should have stopped her years ago. Should have stood up during that hearing. Should have done 100 things differently. You're here now. Too late for your daughter, but maybe not too late for the next family. He left without looking back. I sat there holding the flash drive. Evidence of 3 years of enforcement terror, 47 families, $47,000 in legal intimidation. The tyrant in heels thought she'd isolated her victims, kept them separate, made each family think they were alone. She didn't know her vice president had just handed me a list of every person she'd hurt, a coalition waiting to be organized. Maya came home from the hospital 5 days after surgery, weak, dizzy, doctor's orders, no physical activity for 6 weeks, neurological checkups weekly, watch for headaches or vision changes. She sat on our couch staring at the backyard, at the half-demolished treehouse still standing there like a broken promise. Can we fix it, Dad? I don't know, sweetie. The HOA... I just want Mom's place back. She started crying, quiet tears that hurt worse than screaming. It's the only place I can still feel her. That afternoon, Jennifer Ashford's assistant delivered another notice, hand-delivered, certified. Mail wasn't enough, apparently. Emergency Board Resolution. Effective immediately, all structures built prior to 2020 architectural guideline updates must be submitted for retroactive approval. Structures not in compliance must be removed within 60 days. No exceptions. Retroactive enforcement. The board chair was targeting anything built before her current rules existed. I drove to the HOA office, found Willowbrook's enforcer at her desk, reviewing violation reports with the satisfied expression of someone checking off items on a to-do list. Jennifer, we need to talk about what happened. She looked up, annoyed at the interruption. Mr. Matthews, if this is about the demolition costs, payment is still due regardless of... My daughter had emergency brain surgery. I'm aware. I sent flowers to the hospital. She gestured to a receipt on her desk like proof of compassion. But that doesn't change the fact that your structure violated architectural guidelines. The demolition was legally authorized by the board. You kept testifying while she was bleeding. I was presenting evidence during a scheduled hearing. The board needed that information to make an informed decision. The former real estate attorney's voice was clinical, professional. Mr. Matthews, I understand you're emotional, but your daughter's accident doesn't invalidate the violation or the enforcement process. You talked about property values for 8 minutes while a 9-year-old bled from a head injury. I fulfilled my responsibilities to the board and the community. Emergency services were called. I had no medical training to offer. Continuing the hearing was the appropriate action. She pulled out a folder. Now, about this retroactive compliance resolution. Your property has 3 additional violations. Fence height exceeds current standards by 2 inches. Mailbox design doesn't match approved catalog. Garden edging material is unauthorized. You're targeting me. I'm enforcing community standards equally. The Rodriguez family has similar violations. The Thompsons, the Kumars, all receiving the same 60-day compliance notices. She handed me the list. See? Equal application of rules. I looked at the names. The same families David had mentioned. The ones she'd already forced to remove memorial gardens, play sets, vegetable gardens. You're going after everyone who's ever challenged you. I'm addressing violations that threaten property values. The emergency resolution passed unanimously. The clipboard queen's smile was thin, sharp. 4 board members voting yes. Your opposition to reasonable architectural standards doesn't change covenant enforcement. David Chen voted for this. Vice President Chen understands his fiduciary duty to homeowners. Unlike you, he prioritizes community interests over personal grievances. She didn't know David had already given me evidence of everything she'd done. Didn't know he'd called her systematic enforcement, intimidation, and making examples. Jennifer, this isn't about property values. This is about you using rules to punish people. This conversation is over. She stood, walked to her office door, opened it. You have 60 days to address your violations or face daily fines of $100 per violation. That's $300 per day for 3 separate infractions. Do the math, Mr. Matthews. $90,000 if you delay the full period. My wife built that treehouse while she was dying. Emotional attachment doesn't grant exemptions from architectural covenants. Other families have complied. You will too. The tyrant in heels gestured toward the parking lot. Now please leave. I have actual board business to attend to. I left, drove home, found Maya still on the couch, still staring at her mother's broken treehouse. She looked at me with eyes that had seen too much loss for 9 years. Can we save it? Yeah, baby, we can save it. But not by asking permission, not by appealing to Jennifer's non-existent compassion. I pulled out David's flash drive. 47 enforcement actions. 47 families who'd been hurt by the same person. 47 potential allies who thought they were alone. The board chair thought she'd won by forcing everyone into isolated compliance. She didn't know I organize coalitions for a living, and she'd just given me a list of every person who had a reason to vote her out. That night, after Maya fell asleep with her mother's memory box clutched against her chest, I opened my laptop and did what I always do when facing entrenched power. Research the rules. Not Jennifer's rules. The actual legal framework governing HOAs in Ohio. Started with Ohio Revised Code, Chapter 5311, Property Owners Associations. 30 pages of dense legal language about covenants, bylaws, board authority, enforcement procedures. Buried in Section 5311.081, I found it. A member or group of members may petition for removal of a board member for cause. Upon receipt of petition signed by not less than 25% of members, the association shall hold a special election within 60 days. 25%. For Willowbrook Estates, that was 85 households out of 340. I pulled up Willowbrook's actual bylaws, the legal documents filed with the county, not Jennifer's enforcement handbook. Found the corresponding provision. Board members may be removed for cause by special election. Cause includes breach of fiduciary duty, misuse of association funds, actions contrary to community interest, or conduct bringing disrepute to the association. Actions contrary to community interest. Conduct bringing disrepute. Like continuing to testify about property values while a 9-year-old bled from a traumatic brain injury. I sat back, felt the familiar click of recognition I got when I identified a winning campaign issue. The thing that moves people from fear to action. The narrative that builds itself once you tell it right. Jennifer Ashford thought she was untouchable. 3 years of enforcement terror. 47 families hurt. 0 challenges to her authority. But she'd never faced a recall election. And I'd organized 6 successful recalls during my career. 3 county commissioners, 2 school board presidents, 1 entrenched state representative. I knew the formula. Identify the issue. Find the victims. Build the coalition. Get 25% to petition. Mobilize voters. Win. The issue. Jennifer's callous enforcement regime, crystallized in the image of her testifying while Maya bled. The victims. David's flash drive listed 47 families, plus everyone who'd watched the enforcement escalate and stayed quiet out of fear. The coalition. Parents who understood what it meant to watch your child suffer. Families who'd lost things that mattered. Anyone who'd seen Willowbrook transform from community to police state. 25%, 85 signatures. I'd gotten petition drives to 50% in hostile districts. This was a gated community where everyone knew someone Jennifer had hurt. I pulled up David's financial records, studied the enforcement pattern. Spring 2022, 3 families targeted. Fall 2022, 7 families. Spring 2023, 12 families. Willowbrook's enforcer had been escalating. Current enforcement. The retroactive compliance resolution targeting 15 families simultaneously. She'd overreached. Pushed too hard, too fast, hurt too many people at once. In political campaigns, we call that creating the climate. The moment when individual frustration becomes collective anger. When people stop accepting the unacceptable and start asking, does it have to be this way? Jennifer had created the climate. She just didn't know it yet. I opened a new document, started drafting. Petition for recall election. We, the undersigned homeowners of Willowbrook Estates, petition for the removal of Jennifer Ashford as HOA president for cause. Specifically, 1. Enforcement actions contrary to community interest and well-being. 2. Conduct bringing disrepute to the association. The legal language would matter, but the real petition would be simpler, more human. A 9-year-old girl almost died while the HOA president finished her PowerPoint presentation about property values. This isn't about violations or architectural guidelines. This is about whether we want to live in a community that treats property values as more important than children's lives. One issue, one story, one question. Do you want Jennifer Ashford representing your community? I'd run campaigns on less, started building the organizing structure in my head, identify block captains, natural community leaders on each street, recruit coalition corps from David's list of 47 affected families, create petition teams, door-to-door canvassing, phone banking for homeowners we couldn't reach in person, 85 signatures. I'd have it in 3 weeks. Then the real campaign, 60 days from petition filing to special election, voter contact, absentee ballot assistance, election day turnout operation. The former real estate attorney had spent 3 years building her enforcement empire, one violation at a time. I was about to show her what happens when you organize the people you've hurt, when you turn isolated victims into a voting bloc. When property values meet grassroots democracy. Maya's voice came from her bedroom. Dad, I had a bad dream. I closed the laptop. went to her, held her while she cried about treehouse platforms collapsing and her mother's letters covered in blood. "It's going to be okay, baby. We're going to fix this." How? By making sure the person who did this doesn't get to hurt any more families. I didn't tell her about the recall petition, about the organizing campaign, about the democratic weapon I'd just discovered. But the clipboard queen would find out soon enough. The next morning, Maya's neurologist called with test results. Her brain was healing, but the emotional trauma was manifesting physically. Stress headaches, sleep disruption, anxiety attacks when she looked at the backyard. PTSD isn't uncommon after traumatic injuries, Dr. Kim explained, especially for children who've already experienced significant loss. The treehouse wasn't just a structure to her. It was her connection to her mother. Watching it demolished, then falling, then nearly dying, that's compounded trauma. How do we help her? Time, therapy, and removing the trigger, if possible. She paused. "Mr. Matthews, that partially demolished treehouse in your backyard, every time Maya sees it, her brain relives the fall. Can it be removed or rebuilt?" "The HOA won't let me rebuild it, and leaving it there." I looked at Maya sleeping on the couch, bandages still visible under her hair. "She stares at it every day." "Then you're stuck between re-traumatizing her with its presence or re-traumatizing her with its absence. That's not a position any parent should be in." After the call, I sat at my kitchen table looking at the recall petition draft, at David's list of 47 families, at the organizing plan taking shape in my mind. This wasn't just about Maya anymore, though watching my daughter suffer was enough motivation to sustain any campaign. This was about the Rodriguez family, whose memorial garden for their deceased father had been ripped out. Flowers Rosa Rodriguez had planted on the anniversary of his death, gone because they violated approved landscaping standards. About the Thompson family, whose children's playset was demolished. The swing set Michael Thompson had built with his kids, removed because it exceeded height restrictions by 6 inches. About the Kumar family, whose vegetable garden was destroyed. The tomatoes and peppers Priya Kumar had grown from seeds her grandmother brought from India, eradicated because edible plants weren't on the approved flora list. 47 families. 47 stories of things that mattered, destroyed by someone who saw only violations. And now Jennifer Ashford's retroactive enforcement resolution was targeting 15 more families simultaneously. Gardens, fences, mailboxes, things that had existed peacefully for years, suddenly non-compliant because Willowbrook's enforcer had updated the rules. I pulled out my phone, started making calls. Campaign organizing starts with one-on-one conversations, finding out who's angry enough to act. First call, Rosa Rodriguez. "Mrs. Rodriguez, this is Owen Matthews. My daughter fell from the treehouse the HOA demolished. I'm organizing opposition to the board. Would you like to be involved?" Silence. Then, "The memorial garden. They destroyed my father's roses." "I know. I have the enforcement records, and I'm filing a petition to remove Jennifer Ashford from the board. I need 85 signatures. Can I count on yours?" "Yes, God, yes." Her voice broke. "I thought we were alone, that no one else cared." "You're not alone. There are 46 other families she's hurt. I'm organizing all of us." Second call. Michael Thompson. Same conversation. Same relief in his voice when he realized other families had suffered too. Third call. Priya Kumar. "My grandmother's seeds. That woman called them agricultural violations, like growing food is a crime. It's not a crime, and she's not going to get away with it anymore." By noon, I had 12 families committed, 12 households ready to sign the petition, ready to knock on neighbors' doors, ready to organize. Maya appeared in the kitchen doorway. "Dad, who are you calling?" "Other families. People the HOA hurt like they hurt us." "Are there a lot?" 47 families over 3 years, 15 more being targeted right now. She looked at me with those 9-year-old eyes that had seen too much loss. "Can we stop her?" I knelt down, met her at eye level. "Yeah, baby, we can stop her, but it's going to take work. Organizing, getting people to vote." "Like your campaigns?" "Exactly like my campaigns." Maya was quiet for a moment. Then, "Mom would want you to help them, the other families." She was right. Rachel had believed in fighting for what mattered. She'd built that treehouse while dying, refusing to let illness steal her ability to give Maya something permanent. She'd want me to use my skills to protect not just our family, but every family the tyrant in heels had hurt. Okay, I stood up, made the decision fully. "I'm running this campaign, full organizing effort, petition drive, coalition building, voter mobilization, everything. Can I help?" "You're recovering from brain surgery. I can stuff envelopes, or something." She looked at the backyard, at her mother's broken treehouse. "I want to help." That's when I knew we'd win. Because if a 9-year-old with a traumatic brain injury was ready to fight, imagine what the adults would do once they realized they weren't alone. The former, real estate attorney thought enforcement was about isolated compliance. Individual families too scared to resist. She was about to face collective action, democratic power, an organizing campaign that would show her the difference between property values and human values. This was going to change everything. David Chen called me 4 days into the organizing effort. His voice was tight, urgent. "We need to meet, not at the hospital this time, somewhere she can't track." I met him at a coffee shop 3 miles outside Willowbrook Estates. He arrived carrying his laptop and a second flash drive, looking over his shoulder like he expected Jennifer to appear. "I've been going through old board meeting recordings," he said, not bothering with pleasantries. "Audio files I kept for my records. Accountant habit. Document everything." He opened his laptop, pulled up a folder. "You need to hear what she said after your hearing, after Maya fell." He pressed play. Jennifer's voice, clear and clinical. "The Matthews incident is unfortunate, but it demonstrates why we can't allow exceptions to architectural standards. Emotional appeals will always emerge when we enforce rules. We cannot let a child's accident undermine our authority." Another board member's voice. "Jennifer, the girl had brain surgery, which has no bearing on whether the structure violated covenants. If we make exceptions for personal hardship, we invite endless appeals based on sympathy rather than compliance." The board chair's tone was matter-of-fact, professional. This is exactly why I continued my presentation during the hearing, showing the board that evidence and standards matter more than emotional disruption. David stopped the recording. "She said that an hour after your daughter was taken to the hospital, called Maya's brain surgery an emotional disruption." My hands clenched around my coffee cup. She recorded herself saying that? All board meetings are recorded per bylaws. She probably forgot the recording was running. We usually stop after official business ends. But I keep everything. He clicked to another file. "There's more, from the emergency board meeting where she proposed the retroactive enforcement resolution." Jennifer's voice again. "We have an opportunity here. The Matthews situation has shown that some homeowners will resist enforcement regardless of consequences. By implementing retroactive compliance across all pre-2020 structures, We force widespread acknowledgement of board authority. Yes, it affects 15 families. That's the point. Mass enforcement eliminates the perception that rules can be challenged. She's targeting 15 families to prove a point? I stared at the laptop. It's a power demonstration. She's escalating enforcement deliberately to crush any potential resistance before it organizes. David pulled out the second flash drive. This has everything. Board meeting recordings going back 3 years. Her enforcement strategy, discussions. Financial records showing she diverted HOA funds to hire a law firm on retainer, specifically to sue homeowners who appeal violations. How much? $73,000 over 3 years, paid to Preston and Associates, her former law firm. She's funneling HOA money to her old colleagues to intimidate residents with legal threats. His hand shook as he set down the drive. And here's what you really need to know. She's planning to accelerate enforcement, target 30 more families next quarter. She told the board it's about establishing compliance culture. 30 more? Pools without current permits, sheds older than 5 years, fence materials on the prohibited list. She's going through property records, finding anything she can cite. David's voice dropped. Owen, she's not enforcing rules. She's building a case that she's untouchable. That resistance is futile. Classic authoritarian playbook. Escalate enforcement until everyone's too afraid to challenge anything. Why are you giving me this? Because I voted for every one of her enforcement actions, sat silent while she destroyed Rosa Rodriguez's memorial garden, while she demolished the Thompson playset, while she targeted the Kumar's vegetable garden. He met my eyes, broken, guilty. I told myself it was about property values, about maintaining standards. But the truth, I was scared. Scared she'd turn on me. Scared I'd lose my accounting clients. Scared of confrontation. And now I have to look at my daughter and explain why I let an adult choose a PowerPoint over a bleeding child. Why I enabled someone who calls brain surgery an emotional disruption. His jaw tightened. I can't testify publicly yet. Can't risk my business while my kids are in college. But I can give you the ammunition to take her down. David, if she finds out, she'll destroy me, I know. He pushed both flash drives across the table. But she's planning to target 30 more families. 73,000 in legal intimidation. And she literally said your daughter's trauma was an opportunity to demonstrate board authority. His voice went cold. I'm done being complicit. Use this evidence. Organize those families. Show Willowbrook's enforcer what happens when victims stop being isolated. He stood to leave. Stopped. Owen, the recall petition. When you file it, you'll need 85 signatures within 60 days to trigger the special election. I know. You'll have them in 2 weeks, because everyone's tired of being afraid. They just needed someone to start the fight. He looked at the flash drives. Now you have proof she's not enforcing rules. She's enforcing submission. That's the message. That's how you win. After he left, I sat there with 2 flash drives containing 3 years of Jennifer's own words documenting her enforcement regime, her strategy, her contempt for the families she'd hurt. The tyrant in heels thought she was building untouchable authority. She'd actually been building the evidence for her own recall. And now I had every word. I turned my home office into campaign headquarters. The same room where I'd organized state legislative races, county commission recalls, school board flips. Same process, different battlefield, 3 whiteboards on the walls, voter universe spreadsheet open on my laptop, David's flash drives loaded, organizing plan taking shape. Board 1, the math total households, 340 signatures needed, 25%. 85, target, 120 signatures, 40% buffer for invalid addresses, duplicates. Timeline: 14 days to gather signatures, required daily rate, 9 signatures, day board. 2. Voter segmentation. Tier 1, definite yes. 47 families from David's enforcement list. Guaranteed base Tier 2, highly persuadable. 15 families targeted by retroactive resolution. Immediate personal stake. Tier 3, moderately persuadable. Families with children, elderly residents, anyone who values community over compliance. Tier 4, unlikely. Jennifer's allies, property value above all homeowners board. 3. Organizing structure. 12 blocks in Willowbrook, need 1 block. Captain per block. JAS, 12 volunteer leaders. Each captain recruits 3 petition gatherers. JAC, 48 total volunteers. Each gatherer contacts 10 households. 480 households reached, 141% of total community. I pulled up the Willowbrook directory, started identifying natural leaders, the parent who organized the neighborhood watch, the retired teacher who ran the book club, the guy who coordinated the annual block party. People who already had community credibility, who neighbors trusted, who could carry the message better than I could. First recruitment call: Maria Santos, organized the annual community garage sale for 5 years. Maria, this is Owen Matthews. My daughter Maya, she's the one who fell from the treehouse. Oh God, I heard. How is she? Recovering, but Maria, I need your help. I'm organizing a recall petition to remove Jennifer Ashford from the HOA board. I need block captains to gather signatures. Your street, Maple Lane, that's 12 households. Would you be willing to coordinate? Silence. Then, Jennifer sent my neighbor a violation notice last month for a garden gnome. A garden gnome, Owen, said it wasn't on the approved decorative items list. I have documentation showing she's targeted 47 families with enforcement actions over 3 years, spent $73,000 in HOA funds hiring lawyers to intimidate homeowners. This isn't about property values. It's about power and control. What do you need me to do? Knock on doors. Tell your neighbors what happened to Maya, what happened to the Rodriguez Memorial Garden, the Thompson playset, the Kumar Vegetable Garden. Ask them to sign the petition. Can you do that? I can do better than that. I can get every household on my street to sign. We're all sick of living in fear of violation notices. 11 more calls. 11 block captains recruited in 3 hours. Each one had a story about Jennifer's enforcement. Each one was tired of being afraid. I created the petition packet, legal petition form, fact sheet about the incident, timeline of Jennifer's enforcement escalation, financial breakdown of legal fees spent intimidating residents. The messaging was simple, clear, emotional. On October 12th, a 9-year-old girl fell from a treehouse the HOA president ordered demolished during a pending appeal. While that child bled from a traumatic brain injury, HOA President Jennifer Ashford continued her testimony about property values for 8 more minutes. This isn't about architectural guidelines. This is about priorities, about whether we want leadership that values property over people, about whether Willowbrook Estates is a community or an enforcement regime. We, the undersigned, petition for the removal of Jennifer Ashford as HOA president for actions contrary to community interest and conduct, bringing disrepute to the association. One story, one image, one question. Do you want this person representing your community? I'd won campaigns on less compelling narratives, created the volunteer training materials, door-to-door scripts, objection handling. But property values. Property values don't require 8 minutes of testimony while a child bleeds. Set up the phone bank spreadsheet, organized volunteer shifts, mapped walking routes for each block captain. This was what I did what I was good at, finding the issue that moves people from passive frustration to active participation, building the structure that channels anger into democratic action. The board chair thought she was untouchable because individual families felt powerless, isolated, alone. She'd never faced coordinated grassroots organizing, never faced someone who knew how to turn 47 isolated victims into a unified voting bloc. Maya appeared in the doorway. "Dad, what's all this?" "Campaign headquarters. We're organizing the recall." She looked at the whiteboards, the volunteer lists, the messaging documents. "It looks like your old campaigns." "It is my old campaign. Same strategy, same organizing principles, just applied to an HOA instead of a county commission." "Are we going to win?" I looked at the numbers. 12 block captains recruited, 47 definite yes households, 15 more highly persuadable families, simple, powerful messaging, 14 days to gather 85 signatures. "Yeah, baby, we're gonna win." Because Willowbrook's enforcer had made one critical mistake. She'd hurt enough people to build a coalition, and I knew how to organize coalitions. The former real estate attorney was about to learn what grassroots democracy looked like when it came for your seat. The petition drive launched on a Saturday morning. 12 block captains, 48 volunteer petition gatherers, 340 households to contact. I started on Oakwood Drive with Maria Santos. Knocked on the first, "Doctor at 9 a.m. Mrs. Patterson answered. Elderly woman, lived in Willowbrook for 12 years. "Good morning, Mrs. Patterson. I'm Owen Matthews. This is Maria Santos from Maple Lane. We're gathering signatures for a petition to recall HOA President Jennifer Ashford. Do you have a moment?" "The woman whose daughter fell from the treehouse?" "Yes, ma'am. Maya's recovering, but the incident raised serious concerns about HOA leadership priorities. While my daughter was bleeding from a head injury, Ms. Ashford continued her board presentation for 8 minutes. Mrs. Patterson's expression hardened. "I heard about that. Thought it must be exaggerated. It's documented in board meeting minutes. Would you like to see the timeline?" I pulled out the fact sheet, showed her the hearing start time, the moment someone reported Maya's fall, the timestamp when Jennifer finally stopped presenting. 8 minutes, Mrs. Patterson shook her head. And she just kept talking? About property values and architectural compliance, while my 9-year-old waited for an ambulance. "Where do I sign?" Signature number 1. Next house, the Johnsons. 2 young kids playing in the yard. Playground equipment visible in the back. Mr. Johnson came to the door. "Let me guess, HOA violation notice?" "Actually, we're organizing to remove the person who sends those notices. Jennifer Ashford, recall petition." His expression shifted. "She sent us a warning last month, said our swing set might exceed height restrictions, threatened inspection and forced removal if it doesn't comply. The Thompson family's playset was demolished for being 6 inches over the limit. The kids came home from school to find their swing set destroyed." I showed him David's enforcement records. 47 families over 3 years. Your family could be next. Jesus, I thought we were the only ones she'd targeted. That's what she wants you to think. Isolated compliance is easier than organized resistance. Where? Do I sign? Signature number 2. By noon, Maria's team had covered Maple Lane completely. 12 households, 11 signatures. 1 refusal from a homeowner who said, "Property values matter more than feelings." The other block captains were reporting similar numbers. Oakwood Drive, 14 of 15 households signed. Birch Street, 12 of 13. Willow Court, 10 of 11. The Tier 1 families, those already hurt by Jennifer's enforcement, were signing immediately and offering to help canvass. Rosa Rodriguez joined us with her enforcement notice about her father's memorial garden. Knocked on 6 doors, got 6 signatures, told her story at each one. She called my father's roses unauthorized plantings, ripped them out while I was at work. I came home to bare dirt where I'd planted flowers on the anniversary of his death. Rosa's voice shook with controlled anger. I thought complaining would just make it worse, that I had to accept it. You don't have to accept it anymore, I said. None of us do. By Sunday evening, we had 93 signatures, 8 over our target, enough to file the petition. But I wanted overwhelming numbers. Wanted Jennifer to see that this wasn't close. This was a mandate. Wanted 150 signatures showing that nearly half the community was demanding her removal. Monday, the clipboard queen tried to counter. Sent an email to all homeowners. Notice, a small group of homeowners is circulating a petition based on false information about board operations. These individuals oppose reasonable architectural standards and seek to undermine property values. Do not sign this petition. It is contrary to community interests. The email backfired. Homeowners who'd been on the fence got angry. She's calling us a small group? She's saying we're against community interests? Maria called me. Owen, I've had 8 people contact me wanting to sign after getting Jennifer's email. She just recruited for us. Tuesday morning, Jennifer escalated. Posted flyers on community bulletin boards. Protect your property values. Vote no on recall petition. The flyers included a photo of Willowbrook Estates with the caption, Maintain standards, bear strong values. Wednesday, a local news reporter contacted me. Mr. Matthews, I heard about the recall petition. The story about your daughter and the HOA president's response. Can we talk? I gave her everything, the timeline, the audio recordings, the enforcement pattern, the $73,000 in legal fees. The story ran Thursday. HOA president continued testimony while child bled. Community organizes recall. By Friday, we had 147 signatures, 43% of Willowbrook Estates demanding Jennifer's removal. Saturday morning, I filed the petition at the HOA management office, handed it to the administrative assistant with 147 signed forms attached. This is a petition for special election to remove Jennifer Ashford as HOA president, submitted per Ohio Revised Code, Section 5311, Surah 1, and Willowbrook Estates Bylaws, Article 7, Section 3. Please provide the required receipt and forward to the board for processing. The assistant looked at the stack of signatures. There's a lot of these. 147 households. The board has 5 business days to verify signatures and schedule the special election within 60 days. I walked out knowing the tyrant in heels was about to receive official notice that nearly half her community wanted her gone. The organizing was working, the coalition was built, the democratic process was engaged. Now came the real campaign, convincing 171 homeowners, 50% plus 1 of 340, to actually vote her out. 60 days, one goal, end Jennifer Ashford's enforcement regime. This was what I did, and we were going to win. The board had 5 business days to verify signatures and schedule the election. Jennifer Ashford took all 5. On day 5, the official response arrived via certified mail. The board of directors has verified 142 valid signatures on the recall petition, 5 invalidated due to non-current addresses. Per Ohio Revised Code and Willowbrook bylaws, a special election is hereby scheduled for December 15th. Ballot question. Shall Jennifer Ashford be removed as HOA president for cause? Absentee ballots available upon request. Polls open 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. at Community Center. 43 days. That's what we had. 43 days to get 171 homeowners to vote yes on recall. I'd run successful campaigns in less time, but those were political races with professional staff, donor funding, and established party infrastructure. This was grassroots organizing with volunteer labor and personal savings funding pizza for phone bankers. The board chair tried to disqualify herself from the election oversight, claiming conflict of interest. The remaining board members refused. Ohio law required current board to administer recall elections. She'd have to watch her own removal vote get counted. Jennifer launched her counter-campaign immediately. Professional, well-funded. Exactly what I'd expected from a former real estate attorney who'd spent 3 years building enforcement authority. Her mailers hit mailboxes 2 days after the election was scheduled. Glossy, expensive. Protect Willowbrook values. Vote no on recall. The messaging was strategic. Special interest groups seeking to eliminate architectural standards. Property values at risk. Recall organizers want unregulated chaos. She'd reframed the entire issue, made it about property values versus chaos instead of her callousness versus community well-being. I countered with our own mailer. Less glossy, more powerful. A photo of Maya's hospital room, her head bandaged, IV in her arm. While this 9-year-old recovered from brain surgery, the HOA president who kept testifying sent her family a $9,200 bill for demolition costs. This recall isn't about property values, it's about human values. Vote yes on December 15th. The boss. Mailer worked. My phone started ringing. Homeowners who'd been undecided, angry about Jennifer's attempt to make this a property value issue when it was clearly about priorities. But Willowbrook's enforcer wasn't done. She organized her own door-to-door campaign, recruited the homeowners who'd benefited from her enforcement, the ones who'd reported their neighbors for violations, who valued compliance over community. Her volunteers hit the streets with clipboards and talking points. Property values have increased 12% under President Ashford's leadership. Architectural standards protect your investment. The recall is organized by homeowners who refuse to follow reasonable rules. We were running parallel ground campaigns. Mine focused on the 47 families she'd hurt. Hers focused on the homeowners who feared property value decline. I organized phone banking operations. Volunteers calling every household in Willowbrook. Simple script. Hi, this is name from the EOW, Willowbrook Recall Committee. Have you decided how you'll vote on December 15th? The recall is about HOA President Ashford continuing her presentation for 8 minutes while a child bled from a head injury. We're asking you to vote yes for removal. We made 280 calls in one weekend, identified 189 homeowners who definitely vote, 94 leaning yes, 71 leaning no, 24 undecided. The math was tight. We needed 171 yes votes. Had 94 definite yes, maybe 40 more from leaners. That left us 37 votes short with only 24 undecided households. We needed higher turnout. Needed to motivate the people who'd signed the petition but might not actually vote. I organized absentee ballot drives, knocked on doors of elderly residents, families with young children, anyone who might have trouble getting to polls on December 15th. Mrs. Patterson, you signed the recall petition. Have you requested your absentee ballot? I can help you fill out the application right now. Got 47 absentee ballot applications. And T. Submitted. Guaranteed votes we wouldn't lose to low turnout. Jennifer tried legal challenges, filed motion claiming the recall was procedurally flawed and should be invalidated. Her attorney argued that Cause for removal required criminal conduct or financial malfeasance, not subjective judgments about board member behavior. The motion was denied. Ohio law was clear. Cause included conduct bringing disrepute to the association. Continuing to testify while a child bled qualified. 10 days before the election, the former real estate attorney played her final card. Called an emergency board meeting to pass a resolution. All pending enforcement actions suspended pending resolution of board leadership questions. Retroactive compliance deadline extended indefinitely. She was trying to buy votes, telling the 15 families targeted by retroactive enforcement, "Vote to keep me and your violations disappear." It backfired. Those families saw it as confirmation that her enforcement was arbitrary. If violations could be suspended for political convenience, they weren't really about property values. They were about power. 5 days before the election, we organized a community forum, invited all 340 households, asked affected families to share their stories. Rosa Rodriguez, Michael Thompson, Priya Kumar, 12 others, each one standing up and describing what the tyrant in heels had taken from them. Memorial gardens, play sets, vegetable gardens, things that made houses feel like homes, all destroyed in the name of architectural compliance. Maya stood up too, 9 years old, still recovering from brain surgery, and told 200 neighbors what it felt like to watch her mother's treehouse get demolished, to fall, to wake up in the hospital and learn that the person who'd ordered the demolition had kept testifying while she bled. There wasn't a dry eye in the room. Election day was 3 days away, and the momentum was ours. December 15th. Election day. I stationed volunteers at the community center entrance from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. Not campaigning, that's prohibited within 100 feet of polls, just providing information. Voting is open until 8 p.m. Absentee ballots can be dropped off until 7:45. The turnout started strong. By noon, 178 homeowners had voted. By 5 p.m., 247. By 7 p.m., 289. Jennifer Ashford stood near the ballot box supervising the vote-counting setup. Professional, composed. The board chair treating this like any other HOA business. But I saw her hands, how they gripped her clipboard, how she kept checking her phone, how her jaw tightened every time another batch of residents walked in. At 7:58 p.m., the Rodriguez family arrived. Rosa, her husband, her 2 adult children. All 4 voted. At 8 p.m. exactly, the polls closed. Final turnout, 297 households out of 340. 87%. Unheard of for an HOA election. The ballot counting was public per Ohio law. 3 board members, not including Jennifer, plus 2 neutral witnesses. Everyone else could observe. The community center was packed. 200 people stayed to watch the count. The 47 families from David's enforcement list. The petition volunteers. Neighbors who'd never been to an HOA meeting before but wanted to see this through. The board members opened the ballot box, started sorting ballots into 2 piles. Yes for removal, no to retain. The first 50 ballots, 38 yes, 12 no. Jennifer's expression didn't change, but her knuckles went white on that clipboard. Next 50, 41 yes, 9 no. The room was silent, everyone watching the piles grow, the yes stack getting noticeably taller than the no stack. Next 50, 39 yes, 11 no. At 150 ballots counted, the totals were 118 yes, 32 no. We'd already won. We needed 171 for simple majority of 340 households. But with 297 actually voting, we needed 149 for majority. We had 118 with 147 ballots still uncounted. The counting continued, each ballot feeling like vindication, each yes vote representing a family that had chosen human values over property values. Final 50 ballots, 42, yes, 8 no. Absentee ballots, 31, yes, 16 no. The board secretary stood up. Read the official results. Total ballots cast, 297. Question, shall Jennifer Ashford be removed as HOA president for cause? Yes, 231. No, 66. 77%. Nearly 4 out of every 5 voters wanted her gone. The room erupted. Applause, tears, Rosa Rodriguez hugging her family, Michael Thompson shaking my hand, Priya Kumar crying with relief. Maya sat beside me, watching Willowbrook's enforcer stand at the front of the room as the board secretary continued reading the official declaration. Per Ohio Revised Code Section 5311.81 and Willowbrook Estates bylaws, Jennifer Ashford is hereby removed from the position of HOA president effective immediately. The board will appoint an interim president pending regular elections in April. Jennifer set down her clipboard, walked out without a word, no concession speech, no acknowledgement of the vote, just left the community center with 231 families' judgment hanging in the air behind her. David Chen stood up, quiet David, who'd enabled her for 3 years before finding his conscience. I nominate Rosa Rodriguez for interim president. She understands what this community needs. Compassion over compliance. The vote was unanimous. Rosa Rodriguez, whose father's memorial garden had been destroyed, would lead Willowbrook through its transition. Her first official act, I move that we suspend all pending enforcement actions and conduct a comprehensive review of our architectural guidelines with input from affected families. We're going to rebuild this community into a place where people want to live, not a place where they're afraid to plant flowers. The motion passed 4-0. Outside, I found Jennifer loading boxes into her car. 3 years of enforcement documentation, violation files, legal correspondence. She looked at me. You organized this. You gave me the issue when you kept testifying while my daughter bled. This community needed strong leadership, property values. Increased 12% over 3 years. I know. You mentioned it in your mailers. I gestured to the community center where families were celebrating. But you know what increased even more? Fear, isolation, the feeling that Willowbrook was a place to be controlled rather than a community to call home. They'll regret this. Without proper enforcement, standards will deteriorate. Maybe, or maybe we'll learn that people can maintain their homes without being threatened. That community can exist without enforcement regimes. I turned to walk away, stopped. Jennifer, you kept talking for 8 minutes while my 9-year-old daughter bled from a traumatic brain injury. That's what 231 families remembered when they voted today. Not property values, not architectural standards, your priorities. I left her standing there in the parking lot. Walked back inside where Rosa was already talking about reforming the violation process, creating appeals procedures with actual fairness, involving homeowners and guideline updates. Maya tugged my sleeve. We won? Yeah, baby, we won. Can we rebuild Mom's treehouse now? First thing tomorrow, we submit the application, and I'm betting the new board will approve it. The tyrant in heels was gone. The enforcement regime was over, and 340 families had just learned that grassroots organizing could reclaim community from authoritarian control. Democracy had worked. And it had worked because enough people decided that property values weren't worth sacrificing human values. 3 months later, I stood in our backyard watching Maya climb the newly rebuilt treehouse. Same design Rachel had created, same placement, but stronger, safer, built with the new board's enthusiastic approval. Rosa Rodriguez's interim presidency had transformed Willowbrook. The enforcement files were shredded. The legal retainer with Jennifer's old law firm was terminated. The architectural guidelines were rewritten with homeowner input. The Rodriguez Memorial Garden was replanted. Michael Thompson's children got a new playset, taller than the old one, no restrictions. Priya Kumar's vegetable garden flourished with her grandmother's seeds. 47 families who'd been hurt by the former board chair's enforcement regime were healing, some faster than others, but all of them finally able to make their houses feel like homes without fear. Maya reached the top of the treehouse, opened the rebuilt memory box compartment. Inside, Rachel's letters, carefully preserved. The photos, cleaned and restored. The jewelry, polished. The recording of Rachel's voice, digitized and backed up in 3 locations. "Dad, I can see the whole neighborhood from up here. Be careful, baby. I am. Mom built it strong." She had. And now that strength was protected by a community that valued connection over compliance. Jennifer Ashford had moved out of Willowbrook 2 weeks after the recall, sold her house quietly, left no forwarding address. The woman who'd spent 3 years enforcing architectural standards couldn't face living in a community that had rejected her so overwhelmingly. David Chen was still vice president, still kept meticulous financial records, but now he used them to ensure transparency rather than enable enforcement. He'd apologized publicly at the first meeting under Rosa's leadership, apologized to all 47 families for his complicity. "I enabled this," he'd said, "stayed silent when I should have spoken. I can't undo that, but I can make sure it never happens again." The new architectural guidelines included something revolutionary, an appeals process that actually considered circumstances, a committee that included affected homeowners, a presumption that modifications enhancing livability were acceptable unless they created genuine safety issues. Property values hadn't collapsed. They'd actually increased another 3% in the quarter after the recall. Turns out people wanted to live in communities where they felt welcome, not monitored. The demolition bill Jennifer had sent me, 9200, was forgiven by the new board. Enforcement action taken without proper appeal, process completion, Rosa ruled. Void. Maya's medical bills from the brain surgery were covered by our insurance. But the emotional cost? That was still calculating. She had nightmares sometimes, still flinched when she saw construction equipment. But she also had her mother's treehouse back, had a community that rallied around her instead of billing her family for her trauma, had watched democracy work when her father organized people who thought they were powerless. "Dad, can my friends come up here?" "Yeah, baby. That's what your mom built it for you and your friends." Rachel had built that treehouse knowing she might die, knowing Maya would need something permanent, something that said, "I loved you enough to create something that would outlast me." Jennifer Ashford had tried to destroy it for property values, but 231 families had said no, had said that enforcement regimes don't create community, that architectural guidelines matter less than human dignity, that grassroots organizing can reclaim democracy from authoritarian control. I'd spent 20 years organizing political campaigns, flipping districts, removing entrenched officials, building coalitions from individual anger. This was the first campaign I'd organized from grief, from the protective rage of a father watching his daughter suffer, from the recognition that my professional skills mattered most when applied to protecting my own community. The treehouse stood strong. Maya was healing. Willowbrook was becoming a community again, instead of an enforcement zone. And somewhere, the former enforcer was learning that property values don't vote. People do, and when you hurt enough people, eventually they organize. Rachel would have been proud of Maya's courage, of the community's stand, of democracy working the way it's supposed to. "Dad, come up here." I climbed the ladder, sat beside my daughter in the treehouse her mother built, looked out over a neighborhood that had chosen human values over property values. This was what organizing was for, not just winning elections, building communities where people felt safe, protected, home. If you want more stories of homeowners standing up to hOA tyranny, hit subscribe right now, share your story in the comments, and let me know where you're watching from. Because grassroots democracy works, and communities are stronger than enforcement regimes.